Students, our chapter is friction. We already completed the chapter, so let's do a recap on friction. First, what is friction? See, friction is a force which acts on two surfaces in contact with each other. So, this friction opposes the motion and it also opposes the direction of applied force. Next, whether this friction is a contact force or non-contact force. See, usually friction arises only when two surfaces in contact with each other. So, friction is a contact force. Causes of friction. How friction is caused? Friction is caused due to the irregularities between two surfaces in contact. So, smooth surfaces have minute irregularities between the two surfaces. Rough surfaces have larger irregularities between the two surfaces. So, the friction will be more if the surfaces are rough. The friction will be less if the surfaces are smooth. Properties of friction. See, already I said in the definition itself, friction always in the direction opposite to the direction of motion, and friction easily wears off the surface of contact of two bodies. And also friction tries to prevent movement. Sometimes it tries to stop the body also. Spring balance. See, spring balance is a device used for measuring the force acting on an object. Next is factors affecting friction. See, naturally it depends on two factors. One is based upon the nature of the surfaces in contact, or else how hard the surfaces press together. Next is type of friction. There are three different types. One is static, next one is sliding, next one is rolling. First is static friction. See, friction existing between two surfaces in contact, but there is no motion between them. That type of friction is called as static friction. Next is sliding friction. Sliding friction is also called as dynamic friction or else kinetic friction. So, force of friction acting between two surfaces. When one surface just slides over another surface with some speed, that is called as sliding friction. Next is rolling friction. The friction exists between the surfaces when one body rolls over another body, that is called as rolling friction. See, this sliding friction and also the rolling friction is always smaller than the static friction. Why? Because during sliding, the irregularities in the two surfaces in contact don't get time to interlock properly. That's why sliding friction is always smaller than static friction. In the case of rolling friction, the area of contact is less in rolling. That's why uh, sliding friction and also rolling friction is always less than the static friction. Next one is fluid friction. See, fluid friction means it is the force of friction exerted by liquids and gases. So, the frictional force which is exerted by fluids, that is also called as drag. Friction due to water. So, when an object moves through water, it experiences some force of friction. So, we can conclude liquids also exert some friction. Some examples are streamlined shape of boats. Okay, due to the streamlined shape, both will have minimum amount of friction, so it can move easily. And then friction due to air. Friction arises when an object is made to move through air. Some examples: the bodies of aeroplanes and the birds the bodies of aeroplanes are made in the similar shape of birds, that is the streamlined shape. Why? To attain minimum friction, so they can move through air easily. Next is advantages of friction. See, we can say many advantages. Friction helps in walking, running, and it prevents from slipping. And then friction helps in writing and making drawings. And then it helps the to hold the nails on the wood, or to hold the nails on the walls. And then next is disadvantages of friction. See, due to friction, the engine power get wasted, and then speed will be reduced, and then machinery parts gets their lifetime gets reduced, and then it produces more noise and heat. Next, control, that is methods of reducing friction. How can we control this? By either polishing or using soap solutions, or else by using lubricants. So what is lubricant? Substance which is used to reduce friction, that is called lubricant. Okay, some lubricants are oil, grease, boric powder, graphite. These are all few examples for lubricants which helps in reducing friction. And then methods of increasing friction: by making the surfaces dry, or else by making the surfaces rough. Activity: do the following activity and record your observations. Activity 1. Aim: to show that force of friction depends on the nature of the two surfaces in contact. Materials required: a ball. Procedure: roll the ball on the well polished floor, then on a concrete road, and then on a grassy road, and lastly on a sand bed. In which case it will cover longest distance, and then in which case it will cover shortest distance. Finally, note down your observation. Activity 2. Aim: to show the friction due to air. Materials required: a flat sheet of paper, a sheet of paper crumpled into a ball. Procedure: hold the sheet of paper flat at some height in one hand. Also hold the another sheet of paper crumpled into a ball in another hand. Now allow both of them to fall onto the ground simultaneously from the same height, which will reach the ground fast. After doing this activity, note down your observation. Answer the following questions. Write whether friction is helpful or troublesome in these cases. Sharpening a knife by rubbing it against a stone. Continuous rubbing of parts of machines against each other in the factories. Soles of shoes wear out after some time. The engine of car becomes hot after running for some time. Define drag. State two disadvantages of friction. What is the use of ball bearings and where it is used? Refer chapter 12, Friction.